Hello everyone, thank you very much for clicking on this video and listening to what I have to say about the books I've read so far this year. So I guess, unfortunately, I'm going to be having like quarterly updates because I just haven't been reading as many books as I usually do. I really got into a reading slump at the beginning of this year, and even though I've started a bunch of books, none of them really held my interest. None of them, well, some of them did. The ones that I'm about to talk about did. But yeah, there's just a lot of books that I start reading. I'm like, yeah, I can't, I don't, I'm not interested. And so I put it down. Uh, Gosh. But I did have read, like, these series of books that I did read from January through March. I have full confidence that, like, it kind of got me out of my slump, and I have been reading a bit more in the month of April, so hopefully I'll be back soon with more books to talk about because I just like it. I just like talking about books. Anyway, thank you very much for watching and enjoy the video. So this is Bookshops and Bonedust by Travis Baldree. This is the prequel to Legends and Lattes, the instant cozy fantasy hit that came out in 2022, which bled into 2023 for sure. So get to meet Viv, the orc on the cover, at a younger point in her life when she is still like a mercenary with a famous company, but she gets injured while hunting this like powerful necromancer lady, and she gets plopped into a sleepy beach town to recuperate from her injuries. And she thinks she's gonna be bored the whole time, like, oh no, they're gonna leave me. Oh, they don't like me anymore. Oh, I'm so bored. But then she finds herself helping out a failing bookshop while the spooky necromancy stuff, it's like a mystery to be solved in the background. So yeah, I've already spoken extensively about this book, like, and how I feel about it, because it was the February Star Slug Book Club pick. But to briefly go over my opinion on it, I think it's overall a very nice fantasy story with lower stakes and comfortable characters. Fern, this ratkin right here, is really funny, and this is like the funniest owl pug thing ever, named Pot Roast, which is actually a very pivotal character to the plot. I wasn't really sure how I felt about the book the whole way through, to be honest, but I think the author, Travis Baldree, really aced it with the ending. Like, the ending was really good, and it made it worthwhile to read, I thought. I think there were too many characters actually floating around in the story, and too many of them didn't really matter at the end of the day, but it was still like a comfy, cozy read. At the end of the day, it's still nice. And if you enjoyed Legends and Lattes, you'll enjoy this one too. It's good. But yeah, I'm not going to give star ratings anymore for books that I read because I realize it's not helpful. It doesn't really mean anything. So just like, did I like it? Did I not like it? That's more important than a star, I think. So the rating is, it was nice, but kind of boring. And not as good as the first one. Legends and Lattes is way better. And then I read a novella called The Bruising of Qilwa by Naseem Jamnia. This novella is about Ferouz, an immigrant living in a free state. They have fled their home country as it has a group of blood magic practitioners slaughtering their population. I laugh, but that's like not really funny at all. Despite Ferouz's difficult situation, they find a job at a free healing clinic working with a kind doctor man, and Ferouz is able to provide her younger brother, an orphan refugee, with like a stable-ish life. But suddenly, Ferouz and her doctor boss man discover a new disease, and things start to get a little wild as Ferouz tries to find a cure to the disease while dealing with the prejudices from her clients, and also some family issues pop up in it. This is a really short story, considering it's a novella, so I don't want to say too much that would spoil it. It is a beautifully written novella about extremely current topics set in a very interesting magical world. I appreciate the inclusion of non-binary and trans characters, especially in a setting where like everyone in this world is fine with you being whoever you want to be, but it was still very important to these characters to look the way that they feel. And so it's kind of like this world where like if you're trans, everyone's like, cool, you're trans, I'll use whatever pronouns you want me to use, but they're not necessarily going to be like, oh, you're trans, here's your gender affirming surgery right away. It's just kind of, it's like up to you and what to do. It's not, I mean, there's like, I don't know about you, I've read a few sci-fi books lately that are just like, oh, you're trans, boom, do whatever you want, here's your surgery. This is not like that. It's like still like how you are perceived is still just really important to the characters themselves. So I thought that was quite interesting to read about. The other theme of this book, which is facing oppression as someone whose ancestors were previously the oppressors to a population. It's not quite as expanded on as much as I wish it had been, but honestly I thought because it wasn't as fleshed out, I wish that this novella had just been fully fleshed out. Like, it needed 100 more pages to really get into it. The author writes quite well and has very good ideas. I just would have liked to really understand the world and feel more invested in the characters' motivations, because I felt like this last third of the book, the villain is like, I am the villain, and then the book is over. You're like, okay, what? But still, it's quite good, regardless. Hold on. Okay, you can have Tolkien orcs, Warhammer orcs, and Skyrim orcs. Author, what about Buff Mommy orc? That's exactly what Bookshops and Bonedust is. Honestly, Viv is not quite Mommy orc yet in this prequel, but in Legends of Lattes, she's definitely like admirable, like buff Mommy orc in the making. Honestly, she's not too far away there. I have one more book to talk about, and that is Emily Wilde's Map of the Otherlands. It is the direct sequel to Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies. The plot picks up just a few months after the events of the first book. I don't really, there's not a ton I can actually say about it because it's all gonna be spoilers. But basically it picks up right where it is. Emily and Wendell are back, and they have to go to the Austrian countryside to try to find a portal to the fairy world, like a door to the fairy world. And a lot happens that's like new and also samey. I found this book to be quite comfortable because it was so samey as the first one, but it added just enough new stuff. And I also really liked that they add what's the word? I'm not good at saying it, but this book has a lot to do with Okshi. I think that's how it's pronounced, Irish fairies. And I find Irish fairies to be quite fascinating because they're a little bit different than what we normally think. They actually like silver, and they like mirrors and things that other fae don't like. Emily also has like a family member hanging out. I guess I can see that a lot of people wouldn't like Emily in this book as much because she can be very harsh with her younger family member. It's like her niece. It's her niece, and she could be very cold towards her because she doesn't want her to get hurt and doesn't know how to like express the fact that she doesn't want her to get hurt by the fae around her. And sometimes she's just annoyed because she's like a young lady messing with her scholarly work. But she does. I think you could say by the end of the book she realizes that she grows as a character. Also, this is not a very good cover. I could not find a big picture of this particular cover, but this cover is excellent because everything you see on this cover, it just looks pretty in my opinion, but also like everything you see has to do with the plot of the book. Like these little like foxes down here, the mushrooms, the red flowers, the blue flowers even, and then like there's like dark black crow things and like the mountains and the compass. It's all in the book. I just think it's a really good cover. Personally. And honestly, I feel bad because like these covers, this is actually a pretty good cover. It actually represents the plot pretty well too, and this one also represents the plot well, but I don't know, I like the abstractness of it. Like it just looks like a pretty book.
One eternity later.
So the first book I want to talk about is The Adventures of Amina Al-Sirafi by Shannon Chakraborty. I received this book as a Christmas gift, and it was quite a wonderful Christmas gift, I must say. Actually, like the cover is great, so like even if I ended up not liking the book, I could still display it proudly, I think. But anyway, this is the first installment in a pirate-themed trilogy that spins the tale of, surprise, Amina Al-Sirafi. After many years of being one of the most notorious pirates in the Indian Ocean, Amina has retired, trying to have a peaceful life raising her daughter. This comes to an abrupt end when she is approached by an obscenely wealthy mother of a former crewman of Amina's, and she gives Amina this offer that no pirate or active or retired could refuse. So while Amina struggles with the excitement she feels from going on another adventure, she struggles with the excitement because she also feels guilty about leaving her, like, 10-year-old daughter behind. But she discovers very quickly, relatively, that this job, there is a lot more to this job than she had initially planned for. And it's just like a swirling, constant turns and twists Good time. Yeah, so yeah, this book ended up being a really fun pirate fantasy adventure. Love the cover. Yeah, it's a great cover. Yeah, the book ended up being a really fun pirate fantasy adventure, but I feel that I have to tell you that I personally found the first 200 pages of this book really slow. Like, it's a 500-ish page book. First 200 pages are just like, I think that a lot of people will still find it entertaining. It's just, for me, I really wanted to get to the meat of the story. I really wanted to get to the adventure, but it has this really get the band back together kind of feel, which is cool, but I feel like it could have been like some of the things that they talked about could have been presented like in different chapters. I don't know. It's not terrible though. But basically, immediately after the band gets back together, things really take off, and the story delves into like this really exciting adventure that balances humor and heavy topics pretty well. The way magic exists in this world is really interesting, and it was kind of just a breath of fresh air to read a story where a woman who's like in her early 40s, and she's lived like an extremely exciting, dangerous life. Like, she's still the main character. I feel like a lot of the times we see these older-ish characters that are getting ready to retire as like mentors or smaller characters a younger main character would meet along the way. But overall, this was just really fun to read. It was just a fun perspective. Everything was really quite interesting, honestly. If you like pirate stories, I have no doubt that you like the story too. If you like demonic magic and stuff, if you like, I mean, there's LGBT representation too, even though this is in a predominantly like Islamic like point of view setting, but not in like the like religious sense, just like in the cultural sense. I guess it takes place in the Indian Ocean. You're gonna get a lot of Muslim people. That's just how it goes, right? But yeah, it's really cool. I'm very excited about this sequel whenever that releases. It's like the first book in the next trilogy, so yeah. Yeah, highly recommend this one. I think honestly, even if you don't like reading, like, this is the kind of book that could get you back into it, even if it's a bit longer. Yeah. Yeah, and Chakraborty is a really good author. I was surprised how well she balanced like humor with like really dark topics, so good on her. So next, I would like to talk about the Ballad of Perilous Graves, even though I talked about this probably for like 2 hours because it was our book club pick for Star Slug book club pick. Uh, Let me give you the premise. In a fantastical version of New Orleans where music is magic, a battle for the city's souls brew between two young mages, a vengeful wraith, and one powerful song in this vibrant and imaginative debut. I didn't write that part. That was like a blurb. But to be more specific, this book is about Perry and the perilous quest he must go on, and his sister Brandy and his friend Peaches. The three of them are given a quest to save all the missing songs from Nola, as the songs act as the heart and spirit of Nola, and without them, it is doomed to fail and fall to a giant storm that is looming throughout the story. The book was a really fun ride. There were times in this book where I don't think I totally understood everything that was going on. It kind of didn't matter because I was still having fun. I also want to know, I largely listened to this book on audiobook. I listened to it via audiobook, and it was quite fantastic. I really liked it. The narrator is amazing, and there are really nice little jazzy interludes between sections of the book that were a really nice touch. And I don't mean this as a slight to the book, but reading this felt like an incredibly ambitious debut novel. And I wonder if some of these ideas should have been saved for like a different novel, or I kind of wish the book had been accepted like as its original pitch for a graphic novel, because I think that the story lends itself to like a visual format really well. All the wild ideas were really fun to experience through the lens of Perry, and it was a really fun book. Like, it just felt like Black excellence, like a celebration of Black culture. It was really cool to read about. I feel like a lot of times, especially in like school, we get pushed like unhappy experiences towards like Black experiences, and this is literally just like we're just living here, and this is all of the cool stuff that like we've like made, and like, this is our culture. It was just really cool. I think if you're someone who's willing to let a book take you on a wild ride, you'll like this book too. All right, next I read Otherworldly by F.T. Lukens. This is a very cozy novel by the author that also wrote Spellbound, which was one of my favorite books of the year last year. Spellbound really found me at the right time, and oddly enough, Otherworldly found me at the right time as well. I didn't know Lukens was coming out with a book this year, but I was looking for ebooks to read on my flight to Florida, and I was just browsing NetGalley for ARCs, and this showed up. By ARC, I mean Advanced Reader's Copy, if you don't know what that means. So yeah, I just was like, yeah, give it to me, and I was approved to read it like immediately. So I was like, oh, thank you, NetGalley and Simon and Schuster for this Advanced Reader's Copy. So what is the book about? Otherworldly takes place in a part of the world that has been stuck in a 5-year winter, and this has upended Ellery, our non-binary MC's life, as their parents used to run a farm, and Ellery would help out on the farm. This has led Ellery to move in with their cousin in the city, just a city, working at a diner to make some extra money for the farm. Meanwhile, our other protagonist, its dual protagonists, Knox, is a familiar magical assistant with the powers of the other world, quotation mark, that's what it's called, just the other world. This other person has summoned Knox as a magical being to help them with their wish thing deal that they have bargained with the other world. Anyway, one thing leads to another, and Ellery finds Knox in an alley and successfully helps Knox fend off potential abductors for plot reasons, and the two are intertwined in an adorable quest to help Knox and to save Winter. It's great. It's a very cute book. This book centers around 2 adorable main characters, like I just said, with themes of found family and finding joy in tough situations. Also, what I just said, I read Spellbound last year, and I didn't really find there was that much difference between the 2 main characters' perspectives. The writing was so similar, I felt like, but in Otherworldly, you could really feel the shift when you switched the perspectives between the dual protagonists, and I found that lovely. Reading how much Knox longs to live in the human world because everything is new and exciting for him was such a refreshing perspective for me as a 30-something slug who feels quite burnt out on reality a lot of the time. His love for humans permeates who he is as a character, and it really worked for me. This one is Knox. In case you care. Ellery's internal conflict with their rocky relationship with their parents and current life situation will be relatable to many, and I appreciated their no-nonsense personality. This one is Ellery. Honestly, this book was pretty great. I just wish there had been a bit more time to lead up to the romantic climax that the entire book seemed to be leading to. It felt like the two had all the feelings, but not quite the experience with each other to 100% sell me on their relationship. But ultimately, it's a short, little, lovely book, and I would easily recommend it to many in my life. And then the last book that I read recently is Of Jade and Dragons by Amber Chen. This book actually isn't out yet. It releases in the middle of June, because I also received an advanced reader's copy from NetGalley. Thank you very much. This is the other book I requested. I requested it from NetGalley around at the same time as Otherworldly because I wasn't sure if I would get Otherworldly, but I literally got Otherworldly 20 minutes after I submitted it, so I didn't need to. But I was like, well, I gotta read this one now. Because if you don't, then you your review ratio goes down, then you won't get approved for other books. Anyway, so I read it, and it was I was like, oh, what if I don't like it? Oh no, but hear me out. Of Jade and Dragons describes itself as being Mulan meets Iron Widow in this thrilling silk punk fantasy about a girl who must disguise herself as a boy and enter the famed and dangerous Engineers Guild trials to unravel the mystery of her father's murder. That's the little blurb. So, yeah, I don't know how I feel about the phrase silk punk. Maybe it's a thing. I don't know. It makes more sense to me to just call it steampunk. But anyway, the cover looked cool, and the premise was seemed kind of interesting, so I tried it. And this book, so yeah, the book is about Ai Hui Ying, a girl with dreams, to become part of the Engineers Guild, just like her father was, but her life immediately starts to fall apart in the first chapter as her father is murdered. So she disguises herself as a man, runs away from home, and after running into the 8th Prince of the High Commander, which is the king in this world, he decides to be the benefactor of Ying so she can enter into the Engineers Guild competition to secure her spot as a top engineer to figure out who murdered her dad. So my opinion on the book, every time I thought, this story is going to be pretty straightforward from here on out, I was wrong. And I was delightfully surprised by the way this tale was weaved, the way the mystery resolves, and Ying's relationship with the various characters in this novel. I'm already looking forward to the next installment in the series. Like, seriously. I will say it does feel like Ying overcomes all of her obstacles with relative ease, but I think that there's a reason for that, and I'm curious to see if this will change in the sequel, and I'm curious to know others' thoughts on it. Like, it feels like every time Ying is, like, presented with an issue, uh, like, she can find the solution really quickly, or, like, it just becomes a non-issue. Which isn't a bad thing, especially like this is a YA novel. We don't want, I mean, I feel like publishers don't want the main character to have too much, like, I don't know, not being able to beat the odds, I guess. But I do think that I have a feeling it will change in the second book. Yeah. Yeah, I also thought the writing was good, but it was a little too explaining at times. I do understand that this is a young adult novel, but I do think that like young readers would be able to put two and two together when things start lining up plot wise. Like it's pretty obvious. I also think, or like actually, if like the reader is not putting two and two together, it's kind of nice to have it revealed later. But nah. I also think a few of the characters are like obvious stand-ins for the Mulan characters, like Mulan Disney movie characters, just a couple of them. But it's not a bad thing per se. It was just super noticeable. Overall, I was surprised how often I wanted to return back to this story as I was reading it, though, and I would recommend it to those who liked Iron Widow and and any book written by Tamora Pierce. Honestly. Those are both like Iron Widow by Shiran Zhao is like the Butt Robots anime, but like better. And Tamora Pierce novels are like kids' fantasy stuff. I just really liked both of those, so yeah. Yeah, overall, I liked all of these books, but none of them were like out of the park, blow it out of the water. This is like my favorite book ever. I would like recommend it. Like I actually would recommend all of these books to other people, but I wouldn't recommend them like to everyone, you know? Or it's like it's not a book that's like becoming a core part of me. So I haven't found anything yet this year. And I also am a little disappointed in myself because like this time last year I would have read like I have 4 books to talk about within the span of like 2 months, and I would have already read like 4 additional books already, and I know I shouldn't be too hard on myself because it's like a hobby. Like, so what if you didn't read as much? It's fine, you should take your time with it. But I don't know, it's like I feel like I'm not finding the right books to read. Like I keep picking up books to read for like video ideas, or just like I want to make a TBR and stick to it because I actually do really well with like assigned reading, I guess. But it just is not working this year, so we'll see. The Hugo Awards were just announced. The shortlist was announced, and I will be reading all of those no matter what. So I have a short list to read. A real TBR.